is sciatica? So this class, a little background. The idea for this class came because I personally was dealing with sciatica, and Yin Yoga was the one thing that seemed to kind of settle it. And so I got kind of inspired to do this yoga class from there, and then Greta and us turned into this thing. But this is our sciatica class. And what really helped me in kind of the understanding of what sciatica is feeling it in my own body. So sciatica is when pressure is on the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is formed from your lumbar spine, starting at L4, L5, and then it goes into the sacrum, as you can see on the top here, down to the third notch of the sacrum. And this is where the spine kind of meets with the spinal cord and sends messages up to the brain. So when this muscle, or when this nerve is pressured, what it does is it causes pain and weakness that shoots down along the nerve root. The nerve root of the sciatic nerve goes right through the hamstrings and a little bit of one of your adductors, adductor magnus, your big one. So those are really big muscles. Hamstrings and adductors are really big muscles that need this nerve. And when the nerve is firing pain down it, it can, really slow you down a little bit. The sciatic, it also branches off into the tibial nerve and the common peroneal nerve. And that will cause pain in the back of the knee and that little soft popliteal fossa in the back of the knee. And it also could even cause pain, shooting nerve pain to the front of the leg. The sciatic nerve is the largest nerve in the body. It measures about 3/4 an inch in diameter. So that's about the width of your wrist, this skinny part. That's how big that nerve route is, which is kind of huge when you think about it. Piriformis syndrome is when the piriformis muscle puts pressure on the sciatic nerve. They're kind of they are the same thing. It's pressure on the sciatic nerve. What's different about piriformis syndrome is it's a muscle rather than, let's say, a slipped disc or a slipped or broken disc from like traumatic impact. Piriformis is simply the piriformis muscle is pressing on the nerve. And that means muscles we can stretch. So going to the next screen. Oh, that's just another close-up of the piriformis here in the red, and then the sciatic nerve in the blue. And then your big glute max, glute medius is all over that muscle. And this is a little piece of information I found kind of interesting today. So it was a study of the piriformis syndrome. And so we see here in A, that is the piriformis muscle and the sciatic nerve. And 85% of the population that has piriformis syndrome looks kind of like this. But there are 6 other types of piriformis syndromes and different variations of which the piriformis muscle and the sciatic nerve basically entangle each other. As we see from B, C, E, D, it's like this, the sciatic nerve is like breaking off into the muscle, wrapping around the muscle, going through it, looping. It's like kind of going everywhere. So it's kind of interesting that piriformis syndrome is much more than just the piriformis muscle compressing the nerve. It's kind of the relationship of the muscle and the nerve and how they're kind of entangled. So kind of blew my mind that there's more than one piriformis syndrome. There's 6 types. So it's all interesting. But why is this good for yin? So yin moves really slow. It's the kind of darker, shadier, more internal practice that we do. And what that does is it allows our muscles to really relax and also not move really fast. Sometimes like a deep forward bend and a quick coming back up will pull and set off like kind of a reaction in sciatica, just because the movement's so fast and we're dealing with nerves. So yin, moving slowly through the poses, is really good for kind of rewiring that nerve to relax and rewiring the muscles that are innervated by the nerve to relax. So this, to stretch the piriformis, you do external rotation of the thigh, which is when your thigh goes out. That's its action. And so then to stretch it, you do, its action is lateral rotation. I'm kind of mixed up. Wait, what is its action? Yeah, lateral rotation. I just had a whole cup of hot cocoa, so I'm kind of running on sugar. Anyway, so we're gonna do a lot of that action in order to fully relax our piriformis muscle. And this is really just a great sequence for the hips in general if you don't have sciatica. So I'll hand it off to Greta.
Thank you, Veronica. I've heard you lecture on sciatica before, like on several occasions, and every time I'm always like, like I'm always learning something different. So thank you. So let's start in a comfortable seat, and you can take a moment to get set up. I'm going to sit on a block, and we'll start class just with 3 ohms and a clearing breath. So taking a moment to connect to the ground, feeling the ankles touch the floor, the glutes, the sits bones. I'm even thinking about now like where the sciatic nerve is threading through and the piriformis. And then tracing that awareness, the spine, tracing each vertebrae, the lengthening of each vertebrae and the uplift of the chest, relaxing your shoulders down and even broadening through the collarbones, the clavicle, just kind of tapping into general body awareness. And from here, we'll do 1 clearing breath and then the 3 ohms. Inhale in through the nose. And exhale, AHA out of the mouth. This time, inhale, prepare for Om. Inhale, breathe in. And exhale, release the breath out. I feel like being in a group of people and hearing Om is going to be an experience I really appreciate once the pandemic is over, more so than I did before. I'm sure you feel similarly. And we're actually going to start in a very gentle posture today. We're going to start in sleeping infant, napping baby. Also looks like Spider-Man, spider person crawling up a building. So coming to lay on your belly. And we'll start with the right knee extended. So bending the right knee and bringing the left cheek to the mat. And then you can rest your head on your forearms. You can also choose to support your chest and put a pillow. Kind of makes it a little bit cozy. And we are going to be here for 5 minutes, which is awesome. Sometimes this is just kind of like a release pose for Sphinx or like lower back compression. But since we're practicing gentle external hip rotation to get into the piriformis, and also I want to say like even like I don't have sciatica, but I know so many people with it that by practicing this, you're also preventing you're like preventing yourself from getting it. And I know a lot of runners that have sciatica, so it's a really good practice. I'm just gonna start the timer here. And I know that everyone here is very familiar with this practice. But I will, just in terms of ritual, I will say, I will go over the yin. So yin is the opposite of yang. Yet yin is regenerative, it's nourishing, it's yielding, allowing. It allows room for reflection, encourages you to rely on your intuition, and also turn towards mystery. And I love the word mystery because I think the unknown, I think, can sometimes bring upon feelings of unsettlement, but there's also a lot of potential and excitement in the unknown. Like there's a lot of room for creation in the void, if you will. So we're tapping into all those energetic qualities. And it's nice to hear those words, I think, at the beginning of every class, because then you're more easily able to integrate whichever one. Like maybe there were 3 of them that I just said that really stood out to you. And you can kind of really cultivate those in your practice and every meditation that we do or every pose that we do. And then in terms of anatomy and physiology, we stress and compress the connective tissue, the ligaments, the bones, the joints. It helps prevent osteoporosis by having that compression. It helps with bone regeneration, helps prevent the shrink wrapping of your muscles, because fascia, it's also the casing around your muscles. It's not just below the surface of your skin. And also it helps with the release of fixation, which is basically kind of that crack and pop, like crack and pops during a class, like preventing bone fusion. So really great anatomical benefits of practicing yin, and energetically also. And there are 3 tattvas truth with this practice. The first is to meet your gentle edge. And your gentle edge is not your full range of motion because you want to be able to hold it for time. So finding your edge, maybe grabbing a pillow or a block or a rolled up towel or something that can support you so you know you can sustain the pose for time. So meeting the gentle edge of pertinent depth, and then being still. And there are 2 reasons which you'd move: if you're invited to go deeper into the pose, or if you're experiencing pain. You never want any sharp, burning, tingling sensations. And then lastly, we hold for time. We keep track of time on our phones. We are exactly at the halfway mark right now. Sometimes for this first pose, I forget to start my timer because I'm talking so much. And then we give a final minute. And this is not to like put you on a strict time frame. If you need to adjust or come out earlier, that's totally fine. But it's kind of nice to have an idea of, okay, there's like a minute left. It can be, make it a little easier to surrender into the class, into the process. I guess the only other things I'll say is yin. We don't want to experience pain, but there is kind of like a dull achiness and uncomfortableness that comes with yin sometimes, and not in every pose. I feel like when I practice this pose, I oftentimes don't feel that dull achy sensation, but maybe after 4 minutes you will, and that is where the magic comes in, is the time, not the intensity. Which is why I want to be able to sustain it. So very much, I feel like those 3 tattvas, I can say them in any order. They're just like very cyclical. And when we do move, like Veronica said, move slow. Take your time coming out. It is the opposite of fast. And yin is traditionally practiced in quiet. Veronica is going to probably pepper in some anatomy facts. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. Sometimes I have like an energetic thing, especially when we're in moments where I'm like, I think that it's really challenging. I'll sometimes add in some more stuff. But I think this class will kind of leave a little more room for receptivity, especially because it's a little bit more gentle. And we are on our final minute here. And slowly begin to bring the right leg back towards center. Swivel the neck back towards center. And begin moseying your way onto the other side. So this time, bending the left knee out and bringing the right cheek to the mat and settling in, getting situated, and zeroing in on the points of contact between the outside edge of your body where it's touching the earth, where it's touching the carpet or your mat or your blanket, and just feeling that weight, the force of gravity collaborating, the earth holding you. You can even tap into the rhythm of your breath with the rise and the fall of the belly, or you can notice the beat of your heart and that reverberation, continuation, that pulse. And we're at the halfway mark. And this is the final minute. And if this seems like the longest minute of your life, it's true, it might be, because I said final minute 2 minutes early. We're in our last 30 seconds here. And slowly begin to make the knee back towards center. Bring the chest back towards center. And come into a seat. And Veronica is gonna take the reins.
Thank you. Oh, I'm already yinned out from that pose. So now that we're in our seat, we're gonna come to a butterfly forward fold. For butterfly in this kind of form, you actually want your feet to be further away from your pelvis. Kind of up here and leaning forward. Unless you're really bendy, then go for it. But when we talk about meeting our edge, this might not be something we can hold for 3 minutes. This, on the other hand, might be. If you have kind of really tight lower back and you want to sit on a block to help tilt your pelvis up, or sit on a pillow, that will also actually be really good. I'm going to opt to do that because my hips are really tight. I've been biking a lot and I should do more yoga, do more stretching before. We're going to come into the butterfly and slowly just lean forward, meeting your soft edge wherever it may be. I'm already feeling it right here in my IT band. And if it's too much, you can simply move your feet just a little bit further out, or maybe take some of the bend out of the forward fold. This is a big hip opener and pretty early on, so try to see if there's anything that you can relax. Maybe it's the tongue that's stuck to the roof of your mouth. Maybe it's your toes gripping. Maybe it's a little bit of that shaky feeling of the muscles. That's the case, move out. Or just breathe into it and lean into the sensation. And this is our halfway point. Final minute. All right, over the course of the next few breaths, slowly begin to kind of wrap up the spine. Head coming up last. Maybe even want to tilt your head back. Open up the front of the chest. Maybe close the legs. And go ahead, and if you put a block, take that out from underneath you, and we're going to come to lying on our backs. And from here, from our backs, we're actually going to go into butterfly again. We're going to do reclined bound ankle this time.
So instead of the forward flexion, we're just going to isolate these adductors opening, our IT band shortening, and that piriformis muscle experiencing lateral rotation. If you want to put things like blocks underneath your knees, that will help support you there, or even underneath the thigh to have the thigh kind of rest on the block to support that adduction. Again, you can have your diamond shape that you're making as long as you want. If it's up here and you can do it, that's all good. But I'll start our timer now. Hands can go anywhere. I like to place one on my belly and one on my heart to feel my breathing. Paying attention to the spine being flat on the mat in a neutral position. Noticing how much of a difference it makes to have a neutral spine versus a forward flexed spine. And how much you can really feel this more in our legs now. Maybe before we felt it more in our upper back. This is our halfway point. Final minute. Over the next couple of breaths, begin to close the legs, bringing the knees together, placing the feet flat on the yoga mat. Maybe taking a second to bring the knees, hug them into the back, into the body, roll around on your spine, massaging the lower back, releasing kind of some of that hold if that was in the pelvis. Do whatever movement feels good. You can even want to do a happy baby. You want to roll around the ankles, get a little extra fluid to the ankles. And we're going to move into our next position after we're done with these free movements. And that's going to be reclined pigeon or a figure four. So for figure four, we're going to start with our right leg, placing the right ankle over the over the left knee. Left knee is flat, left foot is flat on the mat. And then we're gonna lift our left foot off the mat. And through this hole that we're making, we're gonna stick our right arm and grab for the back of our left thigh. Now with the left calf, you can relax that, just kind of let it hang, pulling as much as you want, or, this is yin, you can keep the arms pretty relaxed. Another thing I want to note is you don't want your lower back to be too much of an arch in this position. You kind of want to rest it so that soft part of the lower back isn't totally bent. If you even want that this is too much, you can go from real gentle, which is placing the left foot on the mat and just simply doing this external rotation here in the right leg. We're going to hold this pose for 4 minutes. We're already about a minute in. If you feel a pinching sensation that's really bugging you on either if you feel it on the right side, you can simply relieve that by moving the ankle a little bit further up the leg, up the thigh, closer to the knee of the left leg. Kind of just letting it go a little, that'll take off that pinching sensation. If you feel the pinching in the left thigh, right at the hip crest, you can simply lower the left leg just a little bit lower to the mat. And this is our final minute. All right, go ahead and let go of that left leg, slowly placing it back on the mat, releasing that right thigh. Maybe windshield wipering the legs out. I always like this one in between. I think it gives a nice little twist to the spine, help a little reset. When you're ready, let's move on to the left leg. This time the left leg, the left ankle meets the right thigh, making this figure 4. And you can keep this right here. You can place a block under the foot and keep this right here. Or you can thread your hands through, picking up the back of the right thigh and pulling it just a little closer, supporting it with your fingers that are webbed. You can also, if you want a deeper stretch, go for the front of the shin. But again, this is yin, so just meet your edge. Start the timer here for 4 minutes. Acknowledging that, no two sides are the same. So if this feels different than the right, and that's totally normal. You might be more flexible. You might realize, oh, maybe you're a little bit sticky or just tight in that area. That's okay. Alright. It's about our halfway point. Taking a deep breath into the sensations. Hip openers are never easy. There's like we went over earlier, there's a big nerve that, makes that leg, makes that hip stand all day, walk around, pick things up. And right now we're really stretching and compressing this joint. And that's a big deal. Hips always bring some kind of story. So not being too hard about how it's feeling. Instead, meeting the posture and the muscles and the joint where they're at. And this is our final minute. Figure 4 was one of my favorite postures when I had sciatica myself. And I just remembered right now that I was watching Gilmore Girls, and I remember watching Gilmore Girls in figure 4 for just minutes on end. All right, over the next couple of breaths, slowly let go and release that right leg. Bringing both feet back down to the mat. And again, Any counter movement that feels good. That was a long hold. Maybe you just want to give your knees a tap. Maybe you want to windshield wiper the legs to release the lower back. Maybe doing a nice big bridge is exactly what your body needs. I
think Veronica may be alluding to where we're headed. Before we get to bridge, we're going to practice Paschimottanasana or caterpillar. Extend the legs out long and you can find something to kind of sit up on. I'm actually going to use my yoga mat and roll it under to kind of just help my pelvic bowl tilt down. I'm very tempted to maybe like grab a book or something. Sometimes that really helps to press the hips in the way that you want them. And then extending the legs out. You're feeling like you can't really fold. You can always just bring a bend into your knees and support them with blocks. That really helps the fold sometimes. But otherwise, we're going to practice Paschimottanasana or caterpillar. You can also use a pillow or something to support your chest. There's so many good props to use. And I believe we're just here for 5 minutes. And then this is the halfway mark. And if the mind is planning or wandering or fantasizing, trying to direct it back to whatever you chose to focus on for class today, be it breath or intention. And this is the final minute. Vertebrae by vertebrae. Begin to slowly unfurl your spine. Lift the head, neck, torso. Come out of that fold. And then take any free movement your body is craving. Just like take a moment to be still and be like, ooh, that's what it wants. And I'll give some options. You can press up into this form of tabletop. You can extend the legs up, press the pelvis up. But it's more important to do kind of what your body is asking for. And then from here, we'll make our way into supported bridge. And for supported bridge, I'm going to encourage the use of props. So I do have a block. You could also use a yoga mat and kind of roll it up. You could also use a like a towel and roll it up. So really just utilizing what you have around the house is a very good option. So grabbing what you need, and then we'll meet on our backs for a supported bridge. So coming to lay on the back, bringing the soles of the feet to the ground. And then bringing the block to the flat part of your back, the sacrum. So scooching that underneath. You can start with the lowest setting, or if you've got a yoga mat. And if you're like, I'm not feeling that, maybe bump it up to the second notch. But we are going to be here for 5 minutes, so knowing that you want to be able to hold this for time. I know some people like to go all the way up, but like remember, can we be here for 5 minutes? So maybe popping it back down. Maybe you are a flexi bender, heavy superhero. I'm gonna go ahead and set our timer, and the knees can be bent, kind of just like this. This feels actually very chill, very nice. You can also lengthen the legs out. Ooh, and then you might get into like the psoas even. So finding what's interesting for you in this practice today. And this is the halfway mark. And really embracing the silence. I think often I try to fill silence with either music or a podcast or some other form of distraction. But it was just dawning on me how beautiful silence really is when you give yourself the time to reflect, and how nice it is. We're actually practicing that. We're practicing being quiet and still together. So nice. And this is our final minute. And slowly, if you have the legs extended, begin to walk them back towards your glutes. And actively press the feet into the ground and remove the block from underneath you. Let the hips sink down. And then notice just where your body naturally is inclined to. It may be windshield wipering of the legs. You may crave bringing the knees in towards your chest, rolling around the flat part of your back. And then we'll go ahead and the next pose we're going to do is actually on our back. But if you want to make your way up to a seat, either by rolling off to one side or by rock and rolling up to a sitting position, because we're going to use a strap or a scarf or a tights or like long socks if you got them, or like yoga pants. It could be anything. And we did forget to mention that at the beginning of class. So if you have to go run and grab that right now, I just saw a thumbs up from Karin. Cool. We're going to be using this for the last part. A thumbs up from Yasmin. Cool. So people are getting their stuff. And awesome. Cool. So let's start. Everybody's got their scarf. Come laying on your back again. And we've left a generous amount of time for twisting, and I'm so grateful. So we really are gonna have time to do this. So start laying on the back. I gotta get there if you're already there. And you can extend the left leg out long, and then take the scarf or whatever you're using and thread it around the arch part of your foot. You can make sure it's equidistant on both sides just so it feels nice. And we are actually going to start with the leg extended like this for just a minute before we move into the twist. And since we are only here for a minute, maybe even experimenting a little bit, like what it felt like to flex the foot and then relax it, and just more for your own observation, what it's like to be in activity and then passiveness, alternating between the two. And then also taking a peek at your left foot. My left foot was all just like activated and scrunched. Like the left foot can relax. Let it relax. Awesome. And then with your left hand, begin to guide the right leg and the scarf towards the left. Left arm goes out like half of a T. Gaze can be up or gaze can be directed towards your fingertips. And we're going to be in this nice twist for 5 minutes. I always feel like a long twist is a real treat, so I'm happy we have the space for it in this class. And then before really getting into it, I always feel like twists are a good time to check in with the body and make sure you're not carrying tension anywhere else. Relaxing the forehead, your neck, your jaw, your shoulders, your toes, your glutes. It can be really surprising how quickly the tension patterns activate even after being in a state of release. So making sure you're relaxed. And this is the halfway point. And this is the final minute. And really observing how much the twist has evolved since the first minute. It's really changed a lot in my body. And slowly, if your right arm is extended, begin to close the right arm. You can even trace the ceiling like you're tracing an arc or a rainbow, and begin to grab hold of your scarf and elevate that leg back up and bring a bend back into the knee. Release the scarf or strap and do any counter movement your body is asking for. I actually am feeling the bridge pose. I don't know if it's because we were just there. Doing anything that is going to feel like a nice release. And then we will switch to the other side. So taking the strap or the scarf that is much silkier, putting it under the bridge of your foot, getting it even in the hands. And then we'll be here for 1 minute before moving into our twist. And you might experiment with the extension and the flexion of your foot here. You may even roll through the ankle. And check in with the right foot. Again, my right foot is totally flexed, so relax the right leg. It has nothing to do, it has nowhere to be. This is the halfway point of our minute stretch. You can release the left arm down. Excuse me, left arm out like half of a T, and then let the leg go towards the right side, coming into this gentle supine twist. Gaze can be up, gaze can be directed over the left hand. Adjusting the pelvis if you need to. This is the halfway mark. And this is the final minute. And slowly begin to bring your left arm back towards center, tracing that arc, bringing it back to the scarf or the strap. Elevate the left foot back up towards the ceiling. Bend your left knee, release the bind that you've been nestling your foot in. And take any last minute fidgets or moves that your body is requiring. And then we'll meet on our backs or on your side or on your belly, however you want to practice final rest, Shavasana. Getting any last little movements out. Maybe even hugging the knees towards your chest a little. And then coming into final rest. And I will let you know when it's time to come up and out of the practice. And really turning towards the spaciousness in the quiet. There's been so much activity and information. So being here to just process. And slowly begin to invite movement back into your fingertips or maybe your toes. It can be really tough, subtle, a really small movement. You can expand and scrunch your fingers or your face. And bring arms above you like you would, stretching. And this was a yin practice. So I encourage you to roll onto your left side to kind of keep with that energy. But if you want to roll onto your right side, I am not here to stop you. Maybe you're feeling like you need to balance out all that slow that we just did. Either way, coming into a fetal position and extending a wave of gratitude for doing this practice. It's so important to have yang intensity and also this yin quiet and reflection in our day-to-day existence and lives. And honoring the lineage of this practice, going back to its roots in India. Actually, I was reading today that a lot of like the first quote unquote yoga poses ever really found were in the Vedas and the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and they were very yin in nature. And then yin that we practice is rooted a lot in the practice we learned from Bernie Clark and his methodology, and through Emily and Alyssa, but also it's called yin. And so yin comes from meridian theory and Taoist theory and Chinese medicine. So there's a lot of confluence, of influence going on. And honoring those lineages, keeping them alive and present, and also honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people, Duwamish people. I live near present-day Lake Washington, Hachu, Wapsh, and then also Veronica's in Brooklyn, so honoring the unceded ancestral lands of the Lapade, Canarsie, and Rockaway as well. All the indigenous lands and their traditions, may they thrive in the future and present day. And we'll meet with hands at heart center. If that feels authentic to you, this gesture, it represents, I'm sorry, I rushed into that. I'm already in a seat. So now you may press yourself up to a seat. You can take your time getting there. And then we'll meet with hands at heart center. And I think the world is very divided, but also I've noticed that in a lot of rhetoric, we like to just call ourselves like good and bad. Like there's this very dualistic way of viewing ourselves and putting ourselves in these categories, but really there's a lot of nuance and complexity in between. And I feel like non-dualism, I feel like it's the bringing together, like it's the acknowledging of all of that depth. And then bringing hands from heart center to third eye, sealing connection between the heart and the mind, and bowing forward to honor your practice. Peace and thank you. I honor the luminous and the shadowy aspects in each of you. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.